having way too much trouble with Okumura's bosses in P5 Vanilla. I easily beat him on hard and with minimal difficulty on Merciless, but now in Royal even after lowering the difficulty to easy I can barely get past his lanky blue robots.
Okay, so I am furious Kufi can't beat this MF.
Okay guys, I've spent 4 hours leveling in the Memento to win against this Damage, now my team is level 51. Wish me luck.
Because those cunts keep running.
The first is to be around level 44 before sending the calling Cardenal. The second is to have certain confidants maxed out or at least far enough in to get the right benefits.
Disclaimer, frustrated ran ahead. If you're lucky, you'll get a crit with someone other than Haru or Joker and you'll be able to power up their moves with Baton Pass.
By the end of the green mini-bosses, I am about 85% down on FP.
Like Ryuji the Drew Contra
I'm
Joker
playing on medium
Haru,
and I haven't had a problem with any bosses until now. I tried beating it 3 times, grinding a crap ton between each, but I ended up just lowering the difficulty because it was stressing me out.
5 even on Merciless difficulty, and I was able to scrape by on this one on my 4th try. I don't dislike this fight because I think it's hard. In fact, I find hard fights enjoyable if they can be overcome with enough strategy. I dislike it because it's unfair and frustrating.
Atlus's recent growth in popularity with the release of Persona 3 and 4 on every console, the previous re-release of Persona 5 for the 3rd time, again, and the current Blueberry protagonist year, has led to many new players getting introduced to the series, which sparked the everlasting debate. Is Kunikazu Okumura's boss fight big stinky doo-doo? In search for an answer, I tried to load up one of my old save files and fight him again, only to realize that I didn't have far enough back one to do so. So I did what any sane person would do in this situation, which is to speedrun 10 plus hours of a JRPG just to prove a point. Yup. If you didn't know, Royale's bosses are a little different compared to Vanilla, since they also serve the purpose of teaching you a game mechanic by making you use it. Kamoshida is an introduction to main boss fights and their gimmicks. Madorame teaches you to use and recognize elemental weaknesses and to exploit the baton pass. Kaneshiro implements status effects and technical hits. And Wakabat shows you that Futaba is unfair. But what about Okumura? What does the Black Among Us being teach you, if anything? And why is it that everyone seems to find this boss so hard? The answer is, surprisingly, yes, to both. But it's not as obvious to the untrained eye, which is understandable considering this game tends to be baby's first JRPG since the last decade or so. Okumura teaches you about buffs and debuffs and what I like to call the maximization of damage, or damage max for short. These concepts are much more abstract, since they don't provide such obvious good boy stickers as the previous ones. They are more subtle and indirect, which is why so many people struggle so much with this boss. So instead of giving you just a plain old guide, I'm going to teach you how you can beat Okumura, and in consequence, how to play Persona 5. Royal, here's a question. When Okumura says this:
"Now, my devoted workers, targeting them at random won't do the trick. You have to take each one out individually. Here, target that one first. The pompous man in the black coat."
Then he does this.
"Shall we?"
And finally does this.
"Shall we?"
What is he doing exactly? To answer that, we first need to talk about what we'll call buff-debuff equivalents. As you surely already know, there are certain skills that will grant you passive benefits. See these names that look like someone just punched their keyboard? These ones, they're not only funny to say, but they're the most important skills in the game. Shin Megami Tensei gamers know that. By the way, did you know that in Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, if you keep the pixie to the end of the game, you get a huge reward? Taru means attack, Raku defense, and Suku accuracy and evasion. The suffix kaja implies increase, while kunda means decrease. Finally, ma means that it's for everyone. Got it? Cool, enough of this made-up language. Knowing how to manage these skills is extremely important, thus the equivalence of buffs and debuffs. We will ignore Suku skills for this since they're more RNG based. Let me give you an example. Here's Haru doing as much damage as possible natural. However, if we want her to do even more damage, we can use Tarukaja to increase her attack substantially. She won't just do more damage to that particular enemy, but every enemy she attacks. pretty obvious. You're following, right? Now let's face a single enemy. And instead we'll use Rakunda to lower its defense. Now everyone who attacks that specific enemy will do more damage. Notice the similarities? Why is this important? Why are you wasting my time, you may ask? No need to rush, I'm just making things digestible, gee. Point is that they both essentially achieve the same result, but the situation required a different skill for efficiency. Long story short, more attack equals less defense and vice versa. But because of the single and multiple target properties, learning which situation requires which skill can make a big difference. Why not just use the mass skills in these situations? First, because at this point in the game you don't have access to them unless you're over level, which we are trying to avoid, and even if we had access to them, sometimes it's better to conserve SP, especially in longer fights like this. Also, we could use like Jikoku-ten or Aramitama or Orsurus or literal pay to win, but like, come on guys, what is it? Baby o'clock? Back to Okumura. When he uses Rakukaja on one enemy, due to the gimmick of the fight needing to defeat all enemies in the same couple of turns, he gets the defensive advantage. And by targeting one single party member and then lowering their defense, he gets the definitive offensive advantage over that specific party member, being able to easily delete them. So how do we prevent it?
Alright.
Problem solved. The first thing you want to do is to get rid of the desync that buff creates when trying to beat them all at once. The second part of our strategy will consist on getting back at him, by designating an attacker who we will buff to make sure they hit as hard as possible. Knowing which role every character will play at every point will make the difference between succeeding and getting nuked by a hamburger. Because, remember... And how do we do the highest damage possible? Well, hitting as many weaknesses as possible and using an all-out attack, right?
You're wrong, sulfuric acid!
Not only because you cannot use all-out attacks during the Okumura fight, but because it's the wrong answer in general. The baton pass is your best friend here, but you really need to know how to use it. As you probably already know, using the baton pass will boost your attack, and the longer the baton pass chain, the greater the boost will be, with the added boost of skills not using any SP or HP when every party member has participated. Here's where the concept of maximizing damage is born in this game. You will pretty much always want to get as long a baton pass chain as possible. Let's put down the theory. We will count the baton pass levels as numbers, starting by +1 as the base damage, then +2 with a baton pass, +3 with the next one, and +4 with the final baton pass. First instinct to maximize damage without an all-out attack is to have a party member hit every enemy that has a weakness available, then switch to Joker and hit them again. However, it is inefficient because we are only getting 1+1 attack and 1+2 attack on every enemy. If we instead manage to hit a single enemy's weakness with each and every party member, and then hit every enemy at the same time with their weakness with your last party member, basing our assumption that we are facing 4 enemies, we end up with 1+1, 1+2, 1+3, 4+4, and another 4+4 since we take into account that we hit the last enemy standing's weakness. As you can see, the damage is much higher than other alternatives, without even taking into account that downed enemies receive more damage, and we can draw some conclusions from it. The enemy that receives the most amount of damage is the third enemy targeted, since the rough added total is +11, while the enemy that receives the least amount of damage is the last one, only receiving a +8. This information is useful to know when enemies have different HP left, or when you were unable to get rid of the defense buff in time, so make sure to target the enemy that is giving you trouble third and the one you know for sure is going to be easily defeated last. Keep in mind that these are just rough simplified estimates that don't have into account things like stats, equipment, movesets, buffs, etc. But I hope you get the point and how this concept stacks with them. By picking them one by one and then nuking all of them twice, you can maximize the damage dealt in a single party member turn. And, in case they survive, knockdown enemies will receive more damage, giving extra leverage for emergency floor wiping. Now that we've learned everything we need, let's strategize. We won't need to overlevel, reset, or go to a previous save file for this. First, let's establish our team. We'll use Ryuji for his access to Tarogaja, Morgana as the healer and because of his access to Lucky or Miracle Punch, Haru as our key attacker, who uses Sai skills, weakness of the hardest part of the fight, and gun skills which no enemy can resist. And, of course, Joker, to mainly use Rakunda and act as an easy baton passer. This party also pretty much covers every single weakness at every important phase. Yusuke could be a decent alternative to Ryuji with the right equipment, covering ice instead of electric, but Ryuji's Tarogaja is way superior to Yusuke's Tsukugaja in this scenario. Anna and Makoto are just gonna stay in the bench because we can't use the skills that make them good just yet. For equipment, we'll only use one accessory that actively helps us, the Sai Ring, that grants us free access to the skill Sai. Feel I don't gotta explain that one. We'll give it to our boy Ryuji for consistency on the last multiple robot employee phase, since the rest of the party can already hit their weakness or crit frequently. You can get this accessory very easily. You just need this cute little paper guy called Sudama, and brutally and mercilessly execute him on the electric chair in front of his loved ones. Here you go, Ryuji! Just for thematics, we'll give Haru the Ring of Greed, which you can get by collecting all the will seeds of this palace. Because you explored this palace, alright? Last thing we'll prepare is a persona with access to Rakunda for Joker, which you can also get fairly easy at the impossibly high level of 2. Told you we weren't leveling. Both Jack brothers get it. Just make sure to fuse them to inherit it on a higher level, more useful persona. And other than that, we're good. Just realize that no matter what, you'll do much better than I will. Why? Remember when I talked about my save file? Well, this save file sucks. It's ruined, it's worthless, I spent 10+ hours on beauty sleeps apparently, because other than that I got no social skills, no one loves me, I got no weapons, my only line of defense is a pair of Crocs and a t-shirt, and all I got into my name are these random items I came across accidentally. And I could use good personas, but you see, I'm clinically insane, so this is no normal fight with Okumura. This is a bad items, underlevel personas, no equipment, no friends, no excuses, Okumura run. Admittedly, I did die a couple of times before getting to the part everyone complains about due to these circumstances, but finally we are here. Here's how to actually beat Okumura.
Let's go, Captain! Up to you, man!
This is a part of me!
Not bad, Mona. Okay, not bad. One enemy ran.
Count on
Shall we? Show some gravity.
Let's go, Captain! Count your Come on! Rabbit shot! Up to you.
Behold!
And just like that, we have made it. All that is left to do is to defeat the executive